So hello everybody, welcome. So today we have a guest speaker. We have the pleasure to be with Doug Dane. So Doug was my mentor. He's still my mentor, but he's the one that I really started to work with when I started the business in coaching. So Doug had the pleasure to work with Bob Proctor for many years, and now he wrote a book. And also what you have to know is how Doug is a resilient person, how he built his own self-image, and how he was successful in business, even with his past. You will see his story is, hope nobody will cry today, but it's unbelievable. But it's unbelievable that what he was able to do with this story and who did he became, who he is right now. Also, if you have questions for him, put it in the chat and I will call you. So it's really a conversation to help you to build your self-image, to help you to say, what do we do when we're stuck? How do we get to the next level? So let's introduce Doug. So Doug.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
You can unmute yourself if you want
to. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Morning.
I'm grateful to be here and try to help in any way I can, serve in any way I can.
Yes. So Doug, tell me a little bit more about your business experience before we go in your personal story.
Yeah, whenever I get in front of people in the financial services business, I spent 25 years in the mortgage industry, so it brings back a lot of memories. I just grabbed my book here, Think and Grow Rich. I remember I was 23 years old and I was working in a factory making tires in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. And man, oh man, I was looking around for about 3 years ago. I do not want to spend my life here, And I came from poverty, real poor family, real traumatic, violent childhood. And I watched my parents and I go, my dad worked in a factory. My mom sold Tupperware drunk up and down the street. I go, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And anyway, so I quit the factory job and my dad had passed and left me some money and I got into business. And I got this book, somebody that I thought was going to be a mentor for me, turned out to be a real slime ball anyway. He gave me this book and I was reading it and there's a secret in the book. And Napoleon Hill says it's mentioned 100 times. And if you find out the secret, you'll be swept on to success. And I thought, well, that's what I want, right? And so I set a goal that I was going to make $1 million by the time I was 25. And guess what? I went bankrupt. I failed miserably. Now, obviously, I had no experience at all. I got in business with a guy that was just not a good guy. And I really struggled. And there's something in me, and I know you can relate. Listen, I know that you want to grow your business way beyond where you're at. Whether you're just starting, you got a picture in your mind or a pull in your heart that you feel you could be doing more. And so that was me too, of course. And anyway, I went bankrupt. I racked up another $40,000 in debt. And then a buddy of mine got me an interview to get a job at a mortgage brokerage office. Now, this guy was driving a Saab convertible, wearing Hugo Boss suits, and he was getting all the girls. I thought, that's what I want, And anyway, I got the job and I made $17,000 in my first year and I really struggled. And then somebody came into my office and they were selling tickets to a Saturday Sunday event in Toronto. And it was called You Were Born Rich by some guy named Bob Proctor. I go, this sounds like just the ticket for me. I had to borrow the money from my buddy to get to the seminar. And I went, and Bob, in that seminar, I didn't really meet him. I mean, I met him, but I didn't really talk to him. But he explained to me why I wasn't able to earn money or why I went bankrupt. And I discovered, as many of you probably know following Caroline, is I just had the wrong money mindset. I just come from a poor family, as I said, and I didn't like rich people or anything like that. But I wanted a lifestyle, which was contradictory where I came from. So I found out why I didn't earn money because I had a lousy attitude towards earning it. And so I changed it. I left that seminar and I set a goal. I was going to be the #1 guy in Canada. So I named myself Diamond Doug. I've got a diamond pin here from that Bob actually gave me, but back then, coincidentally, They were giving away a trip to the Bahamas. You got dinner with the chairman. You got a whole bunch of these points that you could use to buy travel and stuff. And you got a diamond pin. So I said, I'm Diamond Doug. I'm the #1 guy in my company in Canada. And I went home and I told everybody in the office that I'm Diamond Doug. They laughed at me and teased me and criticized me. And I blew them out of the water. And I went to #1 within a year. And I only say that not to impress you, but to impress upon you that if you change what's going on inside, you can change dramatically. So I spent 25 years in the mortgage industry, and then it was 2001. I wrote an article in the Toronto Star. It's a national newspaper here, and that article was called "Dark Past, Bright Future." And then that article led to television appearances. I was on Canada AM. I was on a TV show in Ontario. I was in books. And people asked me to come speak because they had read this story that was in the newspaper. And that story was, of course, about my childhood that had all been blocked out up until 2000. So I went through a very traumatic, violent childhood. I was given up as a baby for adoption. For 6 months, I was in foster care, and then I was handed over to these adoptive parents. They were really brutal, violent alcoholics. And I spent 13 years in that emotional abuse, physical abuse, witnessing a lot of violence, a lot of distortion, naturally. Some of you might be able to relate to that. And then my mom left the house. I actually threw her out of the house at 13. And then I started looking for love in all the wrong places. And of course, I ended up in a bad spot. And I ended up in this ring of pedophiles, and 2 men sexually abused me, or 4 men, pardon me, sexually abused me over a 2-year period. And it ended in my kidnapping by one of the men taking me from my home. And then I got back, police arrived, they arrested these guys, charged, and they went to jail, of course. And then drugs and alcohol. And that what took me up to 23 when I was in that factory. And I thought, all right, I don't like myself. I don't like the way things are going. And so I kind of jumped from the beginning of my business career to that article, which revealed this huge story. And then it explained to me why I didn't like myself. So I was very successful on the outside. I was doing very well. I had all the trappings. I became a really good actor. Like, I looked like I had it together. And when that article came out in the newspaper, my colleagues were shocked. Like, nobody knew this. I didn't know the story. It was all blocked out until I wrote it, of course. And anyway, that was a real game changer for me, because all the feelings that go along with that kind of an upbringing, shame, guilt, self-loathing, low self-esteem, inferiority complex, anxiety, depression, all these things started like literally fall away like lightning fast. It was shocking how fast things change. And so then I started speaking, and I was always the guy in my business. So I spent 25 years in the mortgage industry. I started out in sales, and then I started coaching and mentoring people. And I had all kinds of positions, starting with building small and big companies from ground zero. I was in sales myself. I was always the guy that wanted to walk the talk. I heard a sign that those that can't do, teach. And I never wanted to, if I was going to teach somebody, I had to walk the talk. And so I was always the guy that I would prove that it could be done, and then I would guide other people to repeat what I had done. And I've been that way my entire career. So 2001, of course, I started speaking and writing, and I'm making all these public appearances because the story is a really dark story with a bright future. And I thought, you know what? I don't have any right to really speak too much about this until I really can demonstrate that I can walk the talk. Now, I had in a lot of respects, of course, but I really began a pursuit to try to figure out how I was able to go from that to being successful and letting it all go. Because people were coming to me and they go, Doug, can you help me? I saw your story. And then they tell me their story. And it doesn't matter whether my story was more severe than others, but everybody's got a story that holds them back, even if you come from a great family. And I couldn't tell you what to do. I mean, I could tell you what I did, but I couldn't tell you what to do so you could free yourself from this prison. And so I went on a pursuit for that. And then 2001, I got into, sorry, not 2001, 2014, I got into a coaching program, and I started to follow Bob Proctor. and go through his courses to change my mindset and really understand this gift that I have, that you have. You know, we have this gift. We have the ability to control and direct our mind to any ends that we desire. And I didn't really know that. And I'd forgotten everything from the seminar back in 1989, 90, whatever it was. I wanted to pursue and provide an answer to people. So I started coaching with Bob, and then I made my mind up that I wanted to work with him. So I flew to Los Angeles. I paid a lot of money to get into a room with 14 other people and sat on a stool one-on-one with them. I was the first guy on the stool, and it was called the hot seat. And you know, Bob's working with you, trying to help you figure out what you want and why you're not getting it. And there's a picture I put on social once in a while because Bob's doing this to me, and my face is like this. Like I was scared, man. Anyway, he said, "Why don't you come work for me?" I said, "Okay." I didn't know what that meant. I just said, "Yes, sir." And then I started working with him in 2014. And then I set a goal. I said, I'm going to be the #1 consultant in the world. I'm going to be the Roger Bannister of the Procter Gallagher Institute. So Roger Bannister, the guy that broke the 4-minute mile. I was going to be the Roger Bannister of PGI, and I'm going to work side by side with Bob Proctor. And I shared that goal with him in July. He had me on a call, and we were talking about goals. He goes, "What's your goal, Doug?" And I go, "I don't want to announce my goal in front of anybody, especially Bob Proctor, right?" But there I am. And so I pull my goal card out and I read it out loud. And Bob says, "Well, I guess you're working with me side by side right now. You're here on this call." Anyway, it was the Labor Day long weekend. I was at my cottage. And he phoned me up and he said, "Doug, I want you to be the international sales director." I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, I want you to be the top consultant in the world, and I want you to lead other people, and I want you to work with me." It was pretty much what was on my goal card, you know. Now, I already was the #1 guy by that point. I blew everybody out of the water like lightning fast. I worked with him. So I worked with him for 8 years. He passed some money, you know, a year or so ago. And we became friends, and he had a huge influence on me. And what I really discovered, I discovered 3 key things I want to talk to you about. So all of you have a mistaken identity as an entrepreneur. Okay. And let me explain that. So I'm just going to share a couple quick things that I discovered that I did not know that maybe you already have discovered already, that I don't need to repeat it. But so as I said, I discovered early on with Bob that I had this mind and I have the ability to direct it. I am the operator of the machine. My mind is a machine. I'm not a machine, but I have a machine and I'm the operator of the machine. That machine, that directs my brain and my nervous system. I didn't know that. So some of the things I was thinking and some of the things I was feeling and my physical state, my nervous system, I was still suffering with some things left over from when I was young. And I couldn't figure out how to let it go, you know? And so I began thinking, all right, if I've got this machine and it operates by certain rules, I better start following the rules and operate it properly. And so, as always, I've always been a really good student and a really good follower. And I become a great leader very, very quickly because I follow instructions and I always want to walk the talk and prove that I can do it, you know? And so I didn't know that. Through the study with Bob and through what he taught and what we were teaching, I knew that the self-image ran the machine. Okay. So your mind is a machine. It's a cybernetic mechanism, like a thermostat. And just like your thermostat in your home, the device is the thermostat, but inside the thermostat is a program that controls the environment of your life. And it's the self-image that runs your program. And so you have this mistaken identity or the wrong view on yourself. Your self-image is distorted to some degree or another. Now, how would you know if it is? It's very, very simple. Are you doing what you want to be doing? And are you feeling the way you want to be feeling? In other words, do you experience calmness of mind? Are you generally, you know, at peace most of the time, calm, relaxed, confident? You experience joy. If you're not happy in your life, whether it's your results or how you think or how you feel, you know that there's something wrong with your self-image. You're not viewing yourself the right way. Now, I didn't know that either. Okay. And so I really embarked on really understanding self-image. And what I discovered was that you can't just decide that you're going to create a new self-image. Okay, you can't just arbitrarily go, I'm going to create a new self-image to be the top financial advisor of my company. You can't just arbitrarily decide to do that. It's not enough. Okay, and willpower isn't enough either. It's not going to cut it. Right? There's two key elements to make an adjustment to your self-image in order to do what it is you want to do or achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Okay, so number one, if you're going to form a new self-image, there has to be some basis that the current image you hold of yourself is not true, or it's a mistake. You've got a mistaken view on yourself. And the only way to create a new self-image is the image that you want to form has to be based on something that's true. It has to be based on truth. Okay. So for example, when I was a kid, I always knew I was adopted. I loved playing basketball. I remember grade 6, Westmount Public School, we played basketball any minute we could. And I used to tell all my friends that I was adopted, but my real dad was a black NBA basketball player. And that's the story I told. And I actually thought it was true. I learned to lie so much when I was a kid that I thought it was actually true. Well, I'll never become an NBA basketball player. Okay. That's just not who I am. If you're left brain, you're never going to succeed at something that requires you to be really creative. If you're really creative and you're doing a left brain job, you're going to suffer. You can't be who you're not. Okay. People in the personal development space, you can be anything you want. That's not true. You can only be what you want to be within the confines of who you really are. The key is to find out who you really are. That's the ticket. And the key is not to fix yourself. The ticket is to be yourself. Now, how do you know who you are? It's really, really simple. You just go to your heart and you just ask yourself a couple of questions. Go, what do I really want to do? What's the wrong in the world that I want to right? What's the hill I'm prepared to take? What's the hill I'm prepared to die for? You're dying for something anyway. So you may as well make it a mission that's worth dying for, And so you ask yourself these questions and you tie into what really turns you on. And what I discovered about self-image is that whoever you want to become, okay, if it's really coming from your heart and from you and not from anybody else, you're not doing it for anybody else. You're not doing it to be accepted or validated or approved or liked or loved. You're just doing it for you. You already are that person. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to do it. Okay. So, if you believe in the idea that you were created in God's image and God does not put out faulty product, then if you want to be something, do something, have something, you already are that person and you have all the talent and ability to carry it out. But if you're not, it's because you have this mistaken identity. And so what is a mistaken identity? Basically, I think there's kind of three kinds of situations. In the case of entrepreneurs and people in business, most people, and I've worked with thousands of people, folks. Okay, in the 8 years I worked at Procter Gallagher, I work with thousands of people. I talk to hundreds and hundreds every week and every month, and I took most of the people that are in that industry that are at 7 and 8 figures is because I work with them. Now, I didn't do it. I don't take the credit for it, but I did help them undo some things so they could see who they really were. And then they really exploded. So one of the problems is most successful people, they're either, most goal achievers are either overachievers, workaholics, or they're busting their butts just to make themselves feel good about themselves, or to validate or satisfy something that they missed when they were young. There's very few people that are really, really successful that really are just happy and calm and peaceful and joyful. I'm not saying that that's you, but statistically, 60% of adults have been through some adverse childhood experience. And that's emotional, physical, sexual abuse, witnessing violence, neglect or mistreatment. 60% of adults, okay? And so most people have something in their story where they weren't treated well, they were mistreated, and it got them seeing themselves the wrong way, okay? And then there's the other people that have been through, they grew up in a nice family, the parents are still together, it was reasonably a decent home. But what the parents did, what the adults did in the programming of you cause some inner conflict, and you might not even be aware of it. And again, how would you know if you have inner conflict? Again, are you doing what you want to be doing? Are you getting the results you want to get? And are you feeling the way you want to be feeling? So here's what happened real quick. When you were little, you arrived as a little baby and you started imitating the adults. You ate what they ate, you spoke the way they spoke, you moved the way they moved. And then when they saw that they had your attention, in other words, they could tell that you were listening and they could communicate with you, the first thing they did is they started drilling in rules, values, and beliefs and biases and prejudices. And they started filling you up with all this. And then you got hypnotized. Okay. What happened really quickly is judgment began. So the first chapter of my book is called Stop Judging, because when you were little, you were taught to judge. You watched the adults judging each other. They were judging friends and family. And then they started judging you because if you weren't following the rules, you got in trouble. And you got punished, or you got criticized, or you got put down, or you got made to feel small, or in my case, I got hit. Okay. And so they taught you to judge yourself. And so very early age, you began judging yourself against this bar that was set by other people. And if you ever got close to the bar, guess what they did? They moved the bar. You were never quite good enough. And so you bring up, and you start out when you're little, you end up asking yourself this question because your parents asked you. They say, Doug, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did you do that? Grow up, Doug. Like at 6 years old, my parents going, grow up. Like, how does a 6-year-old grow up, right? And they drill these things in. They don't mean to, it's not their fault. They just, like in my parents' case, they came from a bad situation. So they just did the best they could with what they had. But that's what happens. And then this judgment grows inside. And you're starting to question yourself. We never really question the adults or the teachers or what they're telling us. We always question ourselves because that's what you're programmed to do. And so, like for me, most of my life, I'm going, what the hell's wrong with me? And I don't know if any of you ever ask yourself that question or ever have, but I go, what the hell's wrong with me? What the hell's wrong with me? And I never got an answer because I discovered there's nothing wrong with me. I started asking, what's wrong with what I believe? What's wrong with where I came from? And whether you don't have to have a childhood like mine, but you do really have to evaluate what you believe. I'll give you a real fast story. I was talking to somebody that I coach and mentor, and we had lost touch for a little while. And he came back. He said, Doug, can you help me? I said, sure. And he went on and on and on about how his results had gone back down to where they were. And he had this huge spike when I was working with him. And then he dropped back down. The thermostat kicked in and brought him back down to 70 degrees. And he was going on and on and on. And he kept talking about what was wrong with him. He goes, it must be me. I must be attracting it and blah, blah, blah. And I said, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. Did you ever consider the fact that there's nothing wrong with you? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I've been listening to you telling me your story about your plan and your strategy and this marketing company you have. I said, this marketing company doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And so I just laid out in about 5 minutes all the things this marketing company was doing wrong. And he goes, oh my God, you're right. But he was always thinking there's something wrong with him. He never thought, well, maybe the marketing company I talked to or hired doesn't know what the hell they're doing, And so we have this mistaken identity, and it holds us back from achieving what we want to achieve. And what we've got to do is really, in my book, what I wanted to do. So for 8 years working with Bob, and we became friends. So he knew the story, and he said, Doug, just let it go. I go, Bob, it's not that simple. Yeah, okay, Doug, whatever you say. No, Bob, you don't understand. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you didn't go through what I went through. I said, yeah, you grew up in a Depression era family. You were poor, and your dad went off to war. And when he came home, he was gone, and you were struggling, but it's different. He goes, really? I said, yeah. You don't understand. He goes, okay, Doug, whatever you say. And he just kept reminding me, just let it go, Doug. This is so simple. You're making it so complicated. Like you can just free yourself like that and take off. Well, I didn't believe him. But, Bob was one of those guys. He wasn't a judgmental. He was the least judgmental person I ever met in my life. He was kind, and he could also see things in people. He saw something in me, and so he was patient. And for 8 years, he kept saying, Doug, just let it go. Just let it go. It's so simple. You're making this hard, Doug. Okay, Bob, whatever you say. And then it hit me. And I was complicating it. I was making it hard. I was dragging it along, making it complicated, only because of where I came from and also the way I was taught through business. I go, it's got to be more complex. It can't be so simple. And then he said something and it just struck me. And he said, Doug, I can't help you until and if you'll accept the idea that it is simple. And when you accept the idea, man, oh man, things are going to change like crazy. And that's what I did. And that was just over just a couple of years ago, about 9 months before he passed. And then I thought, all right. And I had a mistaken identity. There's a story in this book that I revealed a little bit to you. But there's also a formulas book of how I went from all that to where I got to, and then how I freed myself again. And I wanted to put it into formula. So this is not a book you read. It's a guide. It's a guide to letting go of past that's holding you back. And I wanted to assemble a system, a plan, a path that you could go along, and it could happen really fast. Because I want to help millions of people, but like there's 23 on here. I can only help 23 right now. But if I can get this system into the hands of other people through a book, I can help a lot of people a lot faster. And that's why I put the book together. People are always come, go, Doug. And they like, I could talk to one of you. And Bob taught me to tap into a gift that he has. He taught me how to tap in the same gift I have, the same gift you have. And usually within it takes me anywhere from about 2 minutes to 5 minutes max, where I have you figured out. I know everything about you and what's going on, what your problem is, even before you reveal the truth. The truth always comes out. And so if you get really honest with yourself, and one of the chapters is about just always telling the truth, is that if you're really honest with yourself, and you're honest with somebody who's trying to help you, what's really going on, you can free yourself. The truth shall make you free. But all of us have some story, some mistaken identity. Now, some of you going, I don't have a mistaken identity. This Doug Dane is full of shit. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And da 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 da. Well, you're wrong. And I know you're wrong because I was you saying the same thing to Bob. You don't have to accept that. I mean, I hope that you're happy and life is good and you're doing exactly what you want to do and getting the results that you want, that God intended for you. But if you're not, you might want to consider what I'm trying to say here today. So that's kind of the story, Caroline.
Doug, it's amazing. Amazing that, everything you've been through, like the childhood, the kidnap, the sexual abuse, now our little problem of our day-to-day or seriously nothing.
I got perspective, I'll tell you that.
but I think, it started with taking a decision,
Yes.
that I need to move forward. Yes. And when you set your mind that even with your past, that I will be the number one in my company, I will be happy, not only in company, but happy. You're a good dad also. I know you talk a lot about your daughter.
Yep.
It's a decision, but also you did the work to get there. It just amazing. Seriously, though, congratulations, because it's not everybody who decide this. And you really...
Well, this is a good point. If I could just interject one thing. And Caroline, of course, all of you understand, decision is the starting point of everything. So you also have to know that I have no negative feelings or emotions to the whole story, the experience, or the people that hurt me. In fact, I hired a private investigator to find the guy that sexually abused me because I just wanted to give him a hug. And I wanted to coach him, and I wanted to find out, what's your story, Randy? What happened to you? I have no negative associations to the story whatsoever. In fact, I think my story is a gift. In the book, I talk about, somebody asked me, in the book, you talk about your adoption being a gift. I go, yeah. Like, what do you mean? I said, well, there's two reasons. Number one is being adopted, knowing I was adopted gave me perspective that I could have ended up in any family. Maybe I could have been a black NBA basketball player. I mean, if I ended up in a different family, I would have been a different guy doing different things, getting different results. That gave me perspective, and that helped me survive as well. And it kept pulling me forward. But also, I saved the little boy's life, because there could have been another little boy that landed in that family that did not survive, because statistically, either should be homeless, dead, or in jail, or definitely really struggling, an alcoholic, an abuser myself, all these perpetual generational things that normally get passed along. So I see the whole thing as a gift. But the decision I made is I got sick of myself. I got sick of my victim mentality. Now, having a victim mentality is very convenient, whatever. And I was a real victim, but I was a victim when I was a kid. I wasn't a victim as an adult. I haven't been a victim since I was probably a victim of the results of being addicted to drugs and alcohol, but that was something I chose to do. And of course, it's a coping thing from where I came from. But I decided, and Bob said, he goes, Doug, it's all your fault. I go, what? He goes, it's all your fault. I go, how the hell can you say that? He goes, let me tell you what I mean. You're the only one that can take responsibility. And when you take responsibility for the whole thing, you're now in control. And I go, I freaking love that. And so I just decided I am going to take control, because the only person who can take control of my life and my mind and my feelings and my results, nobody's going to do it for me. Nobody. Even the people that care about me the most, they can't do it. And so I just made a decision. And once you make a decision, that opens the door, and oh my gosh, things really start to happen. And it applies to anything.
Yes. Wow. Hey, let's open up for question, guys. You're live here, so who would like to ask a question? You can unmute yourself or raise your hand first. I can or maybe with the okay, Mary Beth. You see Mary Beth first.
Thank you so much, Doug, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Maybe I didn't understand this piece correctly, but can you talk again about where you said the new self-image must be true? And you gave the example of the NBA basketball player. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if you want to be the number one salesperson in your office,
yeah,
like, how is that true?
Well, yeah. So the first idea is that, if you have an opinion of yourself, an attitude towards yourself that's negative, and then the symptoms of that would be, procrastination, second guessing, worrying about what people are thinking, a compulsion to conformity. Those are symptoms of a poor self-image. Okay. You either grow up confident or you don't. There's no in between. You either are or you aren't. Now, you're confident in certain things, Mary Beth, and there's other things you're not confident in. But if you're not confident in yourself, you're not feeling good about yourself, there's something wrong. And what's wrong, it's not something wrong with you. There's something wrong with what you got hooked into or bought into or were told, or the way you were treated when you were young. Okay. And you grew up with this image of yourself, and then you acted like that person. And of course, you get the results that person would get from the way that they act, cause and effect, right? So what we got to do, look at first off is, all right, am I getting the results I want? And do I feel good about myself? Okay. If you're not getting the results you want, it's because you don't really feel good enough, or there's something about yourself that doesn't line up with what you want. And you might not be aware of it. Okay. But some people are. I explain how you can uncover all this quickly and easily. You don't have to go dredging up the past, folks, by the way, either. Okay, you don't need therapy and all that other crap. You have the ability to use your conscious, rational mind to change your subconscious. Just let's get that straight, okay? And so first thing you got to go is if I want to get better results, I need a self-image in line with those results. I've got to check and see, is there anything in my upbringing or my programming that is off track with what I want. So for me, the reason I went bankrupt, it wasn't a lack of gifts and talents or skills. Okay. It was because I had a really lousy mindset around money, because I grew up in a poor family, but I went to school with rich kids because my street was just inside the border of the rich kids school. All my friends, except the people on my street, went to the poor kids school. And then a few of us went to the rich kids school. Okay. And they treated us poorly. They teased us and they criticized. I wanted what they had. I wanted them to like me. Right? I wanted to fit in, but they treated me poorly. So I had a negative. Of course, my parents were poor and my family was poor. And, we shopped at Kmart. All my friends shopped at the rich kids stores, So that's why I couldn't earn it. So there was a mistake about me And I was mistaken about my ability and my talent and my gifts because of what I associated to the idea of earning money and having it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my for instance, okay? And so then the other side, so you got to get that part straight first. So in my book, what I try to do, the first part is it's 3 stages: learn, unlearn, relearn. So the first part is you have to learn what is a mistaken identity, how did you get it, and what is yours. And then you need to unlearn it. And so I just show you, here's how you get rid of it. So I just change your mind on your story because you have the wrong view on your story. Like I had a victim mentality towards my story. It wasn't serving me. I had to change my mind about the story. I had to change my perception towards it and see it as good. And then I could relearn. And then I could create this new self-image. Okay. So there has to be some basis of truth that you're like, if you're like I said, you're predominantly left brain, Mary Beth. You're somewhat analytical. You tend to think things out. You probably plan too much in advance. You also get lots of ideas, but the planning bogs you down. Am I right?
Could be, yes.
Yeah, I know I'm right. Okay. And so, and everybody knows you, they're probably laughing. He's right. And so you're in the right business because you're in the business that requires the use of your left brain. Now, your left brain is very effective for you. Okay. The analytical side is very useful, but sometimes you're not supposed to use it. Sometimes you got to use the right brain side of it. You need to know when to use it and when not to use it. So if you really got into a creative business, you would probably go too slow because you'd be analyzing it too much and planning too much and thinking too much. And so you need to be in something that's both creative and analytical. And so you get to create solutions for your customers. But you get
You're
to use your
100% right on that I realized that earlier in my career that
Yeah.
yeah.
So for example,
can I add, create solution for your customer, but create solution for yourself also.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mary, the other Mary.
Caroline. Doug, how often do you, I'm going to use the word replay, those 3 steps and reminding yourself of those things? Because it's so easy. Like I already know what I need to do. It's just getting in that game of where's your head at all the time. Like how often do you replay that in your head?
What's your favorite? You ever play games in your family or with kids or anything like that? Like Monopoly?
Absolutely, all the time.
All right, what's your favorite game?
I'm good. Oh, jeepers. Okay, we'll go with a simple one that I used to do a lot. Uno.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Uno's a good one, right? Right. So listen, every game, if you want to win at the game, you got to play by the rules. I mean, you can cheat, but ultimately it catches up to you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you were a kid, your parents caught you cheating and they punished you or something, right? You're playing a game and you're cheating, Mary. So Uno has rules, right? Well, in order to succeed in our life, and this is where Bob made it so simple. Life is really actually quite simple. It's not hard at all. We make it hard because of what we believe in our programming and what we were taught. Life operates on some very simple laws of nature, and our mind operates on some very simple rules. And so it's a machine, okay? And it was proven back in the 50s and 60s. Now, psychology went a different direction in the 50s. And most psychologists and therapists and counselors, they don't know what the hell they're talking about as it relates to the mind, okay? And so your mind directs your brain and your nervous system. You got to get that straight, okay? And you have to understand that, and you have to understand it where you agree with it, okay? And so I know this thing operates a certain way. It's a machine. And if I don't operate it properly, it's not going to do what I want it to do, okay? And so the machine operates with certain rules. And so what I did, and I continue to remind myself of daily, and now some of that I don't have to, it's just become a habit, is I have certain rules and standards that I just literally made up my mind. I'm not going to follow the rules and standards I was given because they're not serving me. Most of the rules you follow, they're all man-made. Very few rules we follow are God-made or nature-made. We follow all these rules that people have made up, and the rules are always changing. So I just have these rules, and I wrote them down, and I just drilled them into my head. One of the very first rules, which is chapter 1 of the book, is stop judging. One of the reasons you're not succeeding as much as you want is because you judge yourself to some degree or another. Some of you are very critical of yourself, and you're also critical of others. And some of you play the blame game and you blame everybody else for your lack of success. Right? And so I just have these rules and I just drill them into my head over and over until they became automatic. So the judging one, I discovered the key to getting rid of judgment, like to stop judging myself. Bob said, Doug, if you stop thinking about yourself, you won't find anything wrong with yourself. He said, just focus your attention on other people. Just see the good in them, help them, let them know, make them feel like they're the most important person. So I just stopped judging other people. I made that a habit. And then because that was the habit, guess what? I stopped judging myself. And then if anybody judges me, I've become immune. Now, do I still judge people? Of course I do, but very rare. And if I do, I catch myself. I keep training myself. No, stop judging, Doug. Stop judging. Stop judging. Don't judge. Because if I want to, here's what I discovered. Okay. When we arrived here, we were filled with love and integrity. That's the essence of who we are. It's not in our nature to judge. It's not in our nature to judge others, and it's not right that we're judged by other people. It's not natural. That's why so many people feel in conflict, because they're not operating according to the laws of nature. It's not natural to treat people the way you treat them. It's not natural to treat yourself the way you treat yourself. And so I just started to, I just discovered these rules. I go, like, I'm a pretty bright guy, right? But I was doing some dumb things. And I go, it would make sense that I should follow the rules. So if I want to win in Uno, I should just know what the rules are. I should follow them. And the rules in Uno, they're not very complicated. They're very simple. It's not a complicated game. And life is a game, and it operates according to certain rules and certain principles. And if you follow the rules, you'll win, and you'll calm down. You'll be more confident. You'll enjoy life more. You'll get better results. You'll raise better, healthier children. And life will be better. And you'll feel better about yourself.
So we stop overthinking, get back to basic, and get aligned.
Yeah. So if I may, three quick rules. Okay. And if you don't follow these rules, your machine doesn't work very well. Okay. So you've got this automatic built-in mental GPS called your mind. It directs the brain and nervous system. 3 rules in order for it to create the answers to solve your problems. It's because it's very creative. Okay. And it's goal seeking. You give it a problem, it'll solve it. Right? You give it a goal, it'll get you there. But there's 3 rules you got to follow. Okay. Number 1, you cannot look backwards. You do not look backwards on the past. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. I don't care if it's good or bad. You do not use your memory against yourself by bringing up the past. There's nothing back there that you need to go forward. If there is, your mind will remember it as you go forward. Number 2, do not worry about your future. You can't control your future. You can't even control the plan of how you're going to get to the goal. You can come up with some sort of a plan, but like a GPS, it calls out the directions and then you just drive. You drive along, and then the GPS says, there's an accident 5 miles down the road. Would you like to take an alternate route? Yes or no? And you go, yes, and it redirects you. It doesn't redirect you of if there's maybe an accident down the road, but you're worrying about, I wonder what's going to happen next year in 6 months. And you're worried about problems that haven't happened yet. And so you put stress on the machine. Your physical state moves into a state of anxiety and depression and dis-ease. Okay. And you're not very creative. Don't ever try to solve your problems if you're in a bad mood. You'll be really lousy at it. Okay. And the second rule, or the third rule, which is in the middle, is really you have to operate in the moment, right? Do not operate beyond any more than 24 hours. Okay. If something comes up to your mind, you don't really have to think about that until, like, I've got it down to sometimes like an hour. If something came to my mind right now and I don't have to deal with it till 11 o'clock, I go, nope, I only live in the moment. Why think about something at 11 when it's 9:49? So you train yourself to just operate in the present moment, just like when you're driving a car. You know where you're going, you got your destination, that's your goal. You're just driving along and you're just enjoying the drive. You're relaxed, you're not stressed out. The GPS calls out the directions. There's a problem, it gives you an alternate route. You make a change. If there's a road closure or a road blocker, you got to slow down because of an accident. You just drive and you just enjoy the drive. And that's the way the mind works. So one rule is you can't be overthinking. And the only reason you're overthinking because you are thinking about the future when you shouldn't be, or you're looking at the past as a reference point for the future. And that's why you get stuck.
Yep. And it doesn't mean, let's say you have to reach your goal. You want to reach your goal, sorry. You want to reach your, it doesn't mean that you don't have to plan. You plan, you highlight your strategy, you define your tactic, and then you just attack
right.
one by one. But
Yeah.
there's, what he's saying is just, you're not planning. You have to plan, but it's when you're in the execution mode. Now it's not time to overthink. Now the next hour you're doing your calls, The next hour you're doing this, you're focusing, you're serving your clients.
You know, something I learned from Bob, and I didn't understand what he said. I've got this little checklist here. These are my critical actions. Okay. Most of these critical actions on this list, very few actually involve doing. Most of these critical actions are more about thinking. So Bob said, Doug, you know, most things get done through neglect. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you think that you need to do things a certain way. And your plan, your ideas always come from your level of awareness or your mindset or your self-image. He said, you can actually do this. You can do way more in less time if you start thinking more from this perspective. So you guys have heard that quote by Steve Jobs, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, but rest assured the dots will connect in the future. Well, if you're thinking from the future, you can look backwards and go, how did I get here? Because you're here now today, April 14th, 2023, you're here. You used to be there. And if I asked you, like I told you my story, you can look back and you can connect the dots. Okay. Well, if you spend more time thinking and picturing your destination and how you feel and who you are now, that you'll come up with easier ways to get there. So I get more done. I'm more successful than I've ever been, and I work a hell of a lot less. Why? Because I spend more time visualizing the picture and the future and who I am now that I'm that person. And I keep drilling these rules and standards to operate my mind properly so I can see myself there and I can get from here to there much faster. And that's how you make quantum leaps.
I love it.
You do need a plan. So one of the things on here is I review my plan. I do have a plan. I review it every morning after I've worked on my goals and my auto suggestion, my study and exercise, all that. And then I spend about 10 minutes going through my plan. And then I pick 6 things I'm going to do today, the 6 most important things. And they're on my notepad on my computer. They're on my phone. There's always 6 there. And I just work on those 6 for the day, one at a time in order. And I just work my way through the 6. I don't worry about, and then tomorrow I look at the plan and the plan changes. I'm constantly changing the plan because tomorrow I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow or today. I don't know what's going to happen an hour from now. I know what I'm doing. I know what's scheduled, but I have no idea what's going to come up along the road. But when I do, then I'll course correct. And one more thing. I was talking to somebody last night. They were asking me for feedback on a situation they had handled. And I said, you're making a huge mistake. And they said, what? I said, you're criticizing yourself. You're not looking at feedback on what you did. Because she was going, you know, I did this, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if they misunderstood me, and what if? I said, you can't undo what's already done. Stop criticizing yourself on what you did. You can't change it. It's done. What you can do is you go, what can I do differently? And you can provide feedback to correct your future behavior, but do not criticize your past behavior. Fatal flaw, but we were taught to do that.
I love it.
We all do it. What the hell's wrong with you, Doug? Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. And you know, when I was sitting, when I said that to the husband and we replay the past and we criticize ourselves. What a dumb game.
We have 2 more minutes and we have 2 more questions. So Monique first, really quick in 1 minute.
Hi, Doug. I'll make this quick. So how do we know that if something actually kind of happened in our childhood? Because on one hand, I think I grew up pretty well. I mean, I grew up poor, but I didn't know I was poor for a long time.
Yeah.
But I have been, people do, like my husband, tell me I'm an overachiever. I'm way too competitive. I work too hard. And so I get this feedback from other people around me that like sometimes I'm too much. So I'm like,
are they right or wrong?
They're right, but I don't know how else to be. I mean, that I can be super competitive. I can be a workaholic. I can be, but I just don't understand.
Well, I want to say something. The reason I asked if they're right or wrong, because stop listening to other people's opinions about self, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Okay.
Right? No, they don't, because they're viewing you through their own perception and judgment. There's no way anybody can know what's right for you. Nobody, only you know. And anybody that says things towards you, it's not about you, it's about them. We're all mirrors, okay? So if your husband or your friend or your colleague says something about you, they're not actually talking about you at all. They're talking about themselves because you're the mirror, right? But for you, I mean, get the book. No.
Yeah.
I think well, don't feel you have to go dredging up the past. But what I do in the book is so the book is designed where I tell a bit of my story. I share a key principle. Like I have to change your mind. Like today, I've been just trying to change your mind. Okay. You think a certain way. I'm trying to change your mind in a new direction. And it's not my ideas. Okay. These are just the rules of Uno. And then I get you to answer a couple of questions. Very simple questions. Only takes about 5 minutes. But I ask you some very direct questions. And I expect when you're sitting with the book with your pen all by yourself, I expect you to answer me directly. Okay. I don't want some long freaking story from you. I want a direct answer from you. And so I ask very direct questions. Okay. And then the questions will uncover it for you. And you'll see it. It really is quite revealing. And it doesn't have to be any big major thing. It could be one thing. You know, I remember my parents, a good question, actually. What did your parents teach you or tell you about this? So when I started getting into sales, I said, Bob asked me, he goes, what do you think about salespeople? I go, oh, they're slimy and they're always trying to get something from you and you can't trust them. What did your parents tell you about sales? Oh, they're bad people and anybody in sales are cheats. And so I just looked at if you want to change your results, you have to evaluate your beliefs because it's your beliefs that drive the behavior. So if you have behaviors you don't like, it's being driven by some belief. And so it's not complicated. Just kind of ask yourself, well, what do I believe? And because you're intelligent, you know, you're analytical too. You're very creative though. You got so many ideas coming at you. That's why you work so much.
But sometimes it's good also if you enjoy doing this.
Yeah, it is.
It's good to have a little bit of competition if you enjoy it and it's on a good way.
It's balance, you know.
It's balance.
I think, you know, if you ask yourself some of the questions I ask you, I think you'll figure it out. And you don't figure it out. You're not supposed to figure it all right away. It's a process, right? You just keep adjusting and correcting your course, correcting course. Make sure you're going where you want to be going. Just adjust and correct course. Adjust and correct course. Now, it might not feel like anything's happening.
One thing that you said to me one time, Doug, I know, Kilmary, you have a question, but we're out of time. I don't know if you want to put it in the chat. But Doug said each time he has big meetings, he's taking a bath before to relax and to make sure that he has the ID. So some of you know that when you're busy also, you're taking a nap. So we all have different ways, but it's how can you let the IDs, the thinking to make sure that you can really execute and be this person.
The best way to solve your problem, if you have a problem, you're not feeling that great, go have a nap. Thomas Edison used to take naps. And I figured, I studied him a lot. And I go, all right, if that, and he explained how it worked for him. I figured that's a good idea. So I have naps pretty much every day. I meditate for about 10 minutes. I have a little snooze. I get up and then I look at my problems and I attempt to solve them.
That's amazing. Hey, I would like to thank you so much,
Thank you.
Doug. Really, what an amazing story, an amazing man you are, an amazing mentor. Please, guys, buy his book. You will have a lot of tips to help you to let go and build a new person. And reach out to Doug if you want to have more mentorship. He's seriously an amazing mentor. I had the chance to work with him almost 2 years, so it's an amazing. Doug, thank you enough. We'll share. I will send back to everybody where you can buy his book, and I will put this on YouTube if you don't mind, Doug.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great to meet all of you and talk to a couple of you. And if I can say one last thing, don't try to fix yourself. Just be yourself. That's a lot easier. Yeah, be a lot more successful.
I love it.
All right.
Good job, Doug.
All right. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye.
Thank
Give you a
you.
big kiss.
Thanks,
Thank you
Caroline.
so much. Bye, everybody.